Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining today for our webinar, How to Build Meaningful Supportive Relationship with Data. We will be exploring the impact that personalization can have on your donor base, your fundraising, and ultimately how you engage with all your supporters. According to the Charity Digital Skills Report from this year's, charities with a revenue of under £1 million feel that they need more support to learn about the users from their website, analytics, from the emails, etc. Charities are at different stages, and obviously over the past 18 months, many of them have made great strides when it comes to engaging with supporters. But more than 3/4 say that personalization is very high on their agenda and is a critical priority for 2022 and the near future, because that's the main way that they can remain engaging and sustainable to continue to have their mission and to do their mission properly. How do we go about this? Well, we're going to spend the next half hours, 45 minutes, with the fantastic team from m-hance that are going to walk us through how to engage with supporters in real time through supporter-led experiences, how you can win supporters through personalized communications, and much more. So in terms of key learnings and takeaway from today, you can learn how to earn loyalty faster with end-to-end journeys, how to build trust by complying with regulations and personal preferences, how to increase engagement with AI. Obviously, as you can see on my screen, we are joined with James Glover and Tory, Cassie, and in a few minutes I'll go in a bit more details before handing over to them. Before we kick off, however, I want to remind you that this session will be recorded. The recording, the slides, and all the supporting resources will be made available to you over the next week or so. So don't worry. It will also include all the questions. So don't worry if you're joining in a little bit later. Everything will be made available to you. Closed captions are available at the bottom right of the screen. That's next to the record button if you need them. And then for any chats and any questions, there are 2 sections dedicated for that. So you have the Q&A, which is 2 speech bubble overlapping one another. That's the Q&A section, and we want you to ask all of your questions there. And then the chat is for everything else. So the chat section, we really want to hear where you're joining us from today, why are you come to learn today, and obviously all your tips and experiences dealing with personalization, because we always love to hear and to read about what our community has to say about the webinar topic. Obviously, you can upvote the question that you would prefer to be answered first. And at the end of the half-hour presentation, we'll take really plenty of time to go through each question. So really do not hesitate to ask for any clarification on the slides, or sharing your experiences or challenges. And James and Tory will also be very happy to provide their expertise. My name is Lisa Shomed. Many of you are probably familiar with my face because I've been hosting a few webinars before, and I'll be your webinar host for today. Tory Cassie is a consultant at m-hance, and James Glover is the head of solution architecture at m-hance. They have a great wealth of experience when it comes to CRM and supporter engagement. So without further ado, I'll hand over to them, and I'll see you at the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Lisa. Great introduction. Thank you. So yes, good afternoon, everybody. So we're going to spend the next sort of half hour, as Lisa said, really helping you, I suppose, to trigger some thoughts about how you can really, improve engaging with your supporters, your beneficiaries, and those who engage with you throughout your charity. Just by brief way of introduction, if I just slide through. So as Lisa kindly said, yes, my name's Tory Cassie. I've been working in the not-for-profit sector probably for about, oh my goodness, probably about 18 years now. And, you know, primarily with Microsoft technologies. And I'm joined by James Glover, who's head of our solution architecture. So James is, you know, often engaged with projects, and one of the sort of, I suppose, project objectives is always about how we're going to, you know, increase our revenue, increase our engagement. So when we do talk about CRM, it's very much about trying to make changes and adopt new technology that not just Microsoft, but, you know, software authors are bringing to the sector. So I thought I'd really start off with, you know, quick agenda. We're going to talk about growth of email marketing, you know, the sort of email volumes that people have, but really ultimately the main bulk of the presentation is going to be about what sort of steps we can take to have more effective engagement with those who engage with your charities. And then James is going to go into some working examples to look at sort of segmentation, artificial intelligence, and hyper-personalization. And hyper-personalization is a bit of a buzzword at the moment we're seeing a lot of. But we want to just show you, I suppose, working examples, I suppose, in real life, how it could work. So just really, I suppose, starting off, you know, I don't know the average age of people on the webinar, but, you know, hello internet in early 1990s, and, you know, what an exciting time that was. It was a new method of communication. You know, gone were the days of, you know, receiving letters or invites to events, or, you know, I suppose signing sponsorship forms around a pub table or a school playground. You know, the internet really changed things, and it introduced that mass email marketing. But data was still in silos. You know, there was still data in spreadsheets, data in potentially a membership system or fundraising system or another system, and ultimately we were bombarded with a lot of emails that were not personalized at that stage. But then really, I suppose, towards the end of the 90s, you know, people were looking at more of a, you know, let's look at our databases, let's look at how we are structuring our contacts and our accounts and communications, and moving more towards one system, but still very much in silos. The information that we were receiving and sending was very much basic information. It still wasn't personalized really to an individual or to a supporter, but more email marketing tools were coming to the markets, just .mailer and MailChimp, and people were trying to do more with the technology that was coming to us all. And then I think sort of, 2010, 2012, we had smartphones, which meant that we were, reading emails and then birth of other communication tools on the go, which actually meant that you didn't have to be at a PC at home or at work to receive them. So actually, making sure that emails that were being sent had to be responsive. There's nothing worse than looking, resizing or having to, not having links in emails to other pages. But actually, the smartphones has actually led to, a whole different way of marketing and communications with our supporters. And then really data segmentation. So this is, I suppose, still key today, very much key in terms of how we, communicate with the right individuals at the right time. But we're then looking at more automated and gated and routed emailing. And that really meant, if you sent an email and that individual clicked on that particular link, then you might send them down a different path, and they may then get another email, for example, that's relevant to what they're interested in. So we're looking at more of, I suppose, behavior-led emailing. And that's still happening today, absolutely. But ultimately, things have really improved. So what we are now talking about, I suppose, is hyper-personalization and making sure that, when we are sending those emails, that it's relevant to you and to your interests, and ultimately getting your attention. So when we sort of talk about, hyper-personalization, or we talk about emails, I think we're all, if we just park the charity sector for a moment, even in the commercial world, or, with our bankings, for example, the number of emails that we receive, I personally delete a lot of ones that actually, even in the strap line, it doesn't capture my imagination. Or, for example, if you've put something in your basket and you've gone and done something else, you come back and then, a couple of hours later, you get an email that says, you've got this in your basket, we're low on stock, order now type thing. But it's all of that automation and that intelligence that is really making a massive difference. So I did some bit of research, and they actually said that 36% increase in consumers based on a personalised email. So if I get an email that says, "Dear Tory, I've seen you've been looking at our XYZ, or you're interested in this, attending this event, would you like to register here?" That's really going to capture people's imagination. So whilst the number of emails, and we're talking billions of emails that are sent per day, the majority of them aren't really personalised to me, and that's really something that we're going to be talking about today. So hopefully we're going to be showing you how we can really make sure that emails are personalized, and that doesn't necessarily mean just personalized to Dear Tory. It means that that company, that charity knows that I'll typically look at my emails on a Friday afternoon, or I might look at them on a Sunday morning or whatever. So being able to really get to the crux of those individuals, of what will capture their imagination, what they're interested in, when are they going to open their emails, and actually how do they communicate with you as a charity? Is it through email? I know for my mum and potentially the older generation, email is absolutely the way to go. She would never look at TikTok or Instagram or anything like that, whereas I have 2 teenage children. I can't remember the last time they used email. It is very much about Instagram, and they're actually, even Facebook for them is an ancient tool. So knowing your supporters, that the way they want to communicate with you, the tools they use, is really impactful to make sure that you can make your email marketing efforts and the time and the message that you're sending is applicable to each and every person. So I put this slide up here, and the previous slides were just about email, but actually there is a plethora of ways that people communicate now. We've got Facebook donations, we've, as I said, TikTok, Instagram, email. There's still mail and post. There's a whole different raft of ways that people can communicate to your charity. So we're going to be focusing a bit more on the, I suppose, the email side of things today, but actually being able to understand your supporters, or as I said, the sort of methods that they prefer, how they engage you, is really important. And not only that, because somebody who may potentially donate, be of low value donations, for example, so they might just be a couple of pounds a month, where you might have another individual who is less than that, but actually they retweet your causes and your campaigns all the time. So their value to you as a charity, maybe not with monetary value of significance, but actually the way that they share your interests, your campaigns, your advocacy, it's all within social media. They're pretty important to you. So being able to monitor all of that in one place is really key. So this is just I suppose a really simple graph that we've put together in terms of some of the research that we've undertaken in the past couple of weeks. So sort of a couple of years ago, 2020, we're talking billions of emails that were sent, a little bit of text and WhatsApp type communication, and social, relatively small in terms of being able to engage through social side of things. 2025, we're seeing the blue bar decrease, and the future really is that email may not be, the main tool of choice, and we're definitely seeing more on social. So people who, being able to, do charities are now posting adverts through Google Ads onto people who know of interest, or maybe who have donated through Just Giving. You'll then get an advert for that particular charity, and you can quickly and easily donate that way. So a lot of the research, some of the digital research that's been done, is that actually donations, one-off donations, is increasing, recurring gifts are decreasing, but the ease of being able to do those donations through some of the social tools is really what's increasing that side of things. So just in terms of, I suppose, some of the, I said before I hand over to James, some of the steps that we've got here in terms of guidance. So one is really understand your supporters. We're not talking about preference and consent here, and obviously that's just standard that would be in place, but making sure that we understand the supporters. do you know that if you, for example, for emergency aid, for example, that those particular individuals, this group of individuals, they always respond, really well to, emergency aid really quickly. So making sure that you've got their interests, their motivations all stored within a system that you can quickly and easily segment that data in real time to be able to get campaigns and appeals through whichever method, be social media, email, website, out really quickly. But then also to be able to track those communications as well. So when you do send an email or something through a social media platform, if you know they've clicked on it and they've clicked on another one, then actually you can send them down a really nice gated journey to maintain their interest. It's a bit Big Brother, I get that, but actually, that's really what supporters want to see. They want to know that you as a charity are aware that that is where their interest is. And then to be able to analyze that success as well. So of that campaign, we sent X amount of emails or Twitters or whatever it may, tweets or whatever it may be. And we're then getting the number of opens or click-throughs of those emails. We've then got so many donations, or so many have become members or signed up for a newsletter or what it may be, or whichever route it may be. So actually, understanding your supporter, segmenting your data, being able to track and then analyze is really key. And unless your data really is in one place, or you have the tools to do each of these phases, it's going to be very difficult to engage personally to those supporters who want to engage with you as a charity of choice. So I'm just going to flick over to, or James is going to take control of my screens, because we're going to show some working examples here. So we're going to look at how we can earn that loyalty faster with these end-to-end journeys, how we can build trust by preferences and regulations, and knowing the supporters knowing that you know them and what they're interested in, and also how to increase engagement. And we've got artificial intelligence, AI. AI years ago used to be something that was way out into the distance. It's going to be many years to come. It's not applicable to me as a charity, but actually, whichever size charity you are, you can really take advantage of some of the neat tools that software authors are offering now with simple artificial intelligence. That might even be something like, what's the next best action for this particular group of supporters based on this communications, this donation, etc., etc. So I'll stop talking and hand over to James. We think it's really useful to be able to show you how potentially this could work. So again, whilst we are showing in Microsoft Dynamics, we're not here to sell Microsoft Dynamics. There are other platforms available who can also offer this level of functionality as well. So James, over to you. We can see your screen. Great.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tory. Yeah. So as Tory says, what we're discussing here is making sure we truly know who the individual is. So it's not just around sending mass emails. So what I've started out here is just by looking at a person, looking at the person we're interacting with, and actually seeing that timeline of, actually, yes, we've been sending them emails, but actually which ones have they read? And off the back of that, which have they actually registered something? Have they actually signed up? Have they committed to do something? Because what we really struggle at is understanding the conversion rates. There's no point just sending lots and lots of emails out if they're not actually causing an action. So what I'm trying to point out here is, if we can understand those conversion rates, if we can work with websites to follow that person through that journey using Google Analytics and all those tool sets, means we actually know what we're achieving. We need to get to the point of, I've sent an email, they've clicked on this, they've gone there, they've hit our donation form, to actually work out that conversion rate. It's very rare we actually get a proper, this email actually caused this action. So we need to, and if we don't start getting that telemetry and that data set, we can't then do more personalization in the future. So by getting that data set in, it means we can then start working on more levels of personalization as we go through. So just an example here, if I look at Ethel, I'll see that when my screen she seems to randomly read emails, but when she does, it's predominantly in the afternoon. So let's start using, as Tory says, you don't need to understand AI, but there's very little point in sending her in the work week, sending out an email to her in the morning. She won't read it. Yeah. She only ever reads stuff in the afternoon, or literally it looks like she spends a whole day doing a day job and she catches up on email at night. So let's make sure it's at the top of her mailbox. There's nothing worse than doing some work, being a marketeer, getting it in the mailbox at 10 a.m. By the time they actually get around to reading their emails, there could be 50 emails in front of them at the queue. You want the eyeballs to be on your stuff first. So leveraging stuff that's looking at your supporters, was you having to do anything. The whole point of these sort of technologies is, yes, I'm going to send an email today, but let the technology work out when it should actually hit that person's mailbox. So before we even get into personalization, let's just make sure it's arriving at the right time in the day based on their particular reading habits. But let's kind of go into first segmentation in terms of how we can limit the amount of data we send out, and then on to kind of how we could evolve into a journey based on that segmentation. So I'm going to go through an equivalent of using hyper personalization around somebody who's dropped out of volunteering for an organization. So they were previously a volunteer, they've stopped. We don't know why they've stopped, but we want to kind of use that data set to create a personalized journey for them. So looking in here, I've built like a segment in this particular marketing product. It could be any marketing product, but we can see here, I'm looking at their participation as a volunteer and just checking the fact that they haven't done any participation in at least 6 months. Yeah. But what I also want to do is just check if they have still been interacting with us. So I want to see if they've been doing that, but actually, I want to look if they've actually been coming back to our website. So rather than just saying, like, they might have just fallen out of love with the whole charity. So what I want to do is do both the negative and the positives of saying, actually, they've stopped volunteering, what's up? But actually, are they still coming back to our website? Are they still reading stuff? Are they still looking at this content? And on top of that, so then I want to start doing some kind of more exclusions. I want to actually say, actually, we're doing all that, but if they're still giving us money every couple of months, they still like us as a charity. Maybe they just don't want to volunteer anymore. So actually, rather than just nagging people, let's just look what else they're doing with the organization. So I've done some nice, simple, but actually, if they've given us any money, that's fine. Let's just not stick them in this thread. Or maybe they've just signed up for an event. They could be doing something completely different. They might be doing the London Marathon for us and they haven't raised any money yet. So by being able to do these additional layering when we're building out segments means that we're not just sending everybody the same stuff over and over and over again. We've got a much more smaller subset of people who we've got a better chance of a conversion rate. Because we all hate the fact as marketeers is we do this mass mailing and you look at your stats and you've got like an 8% read rate and you kind of wonder why you put all that effort in. But if we can get a subset of people who are more interested, it means we could then do that more integration of a level of a journey. So I'm going to hop over to a journey now just to kind of show how this segment could actually then be used to really nurture them back in. So I'm going to come here. So I've got this segment builder. It could be any tool in here, but I'm using that segment at the very top just to ask them, do you fancy volunteering again? Yeah, let's kind of go through that process. And then based on that initial email, I've not done much personalization at all, apart from that I've got an email that says we noticed she volunteered more than 6 months ago. Again, by having that data available all in one system, that initial volunteering one can be pointed at them. I can pull through the role they did the last time they volunteered. So it's not just volunteer with us. It could be, I'm sorry, Mr. Jones, you were volunteering for us up until this date. Did you enjoy the role? Would you be interested in doing it again? Again, it's more like a person talking to a person than just generic kind of, please do something. And off the back of that, we can then kind of go into this nice journey builder process where we're checking if they're reading it, we're checking if they're clicking links. But then again, we can start looking at it. Maybe they've done nothing. Maybe there hasn't been any particular actions. But again, using elements of AI at this point, we could be saying, actually, they've read this email. Let's wait 10 days. But then let's look at that contact record of all the previous interactions that's been going on with this person. Was email the best channel? Maybe email is, maybe text is, maybe WhatsApp is. And we could build in multi-channel at this point to work out, based on that particular individual, is email the way to go? Maybe we do just send them a text, but rather than me making a conscious decision, let's just slip in a bit of AI to make that conscious decision as well. Let's look at them, work out if a text is better. But the nice thing is with some of the new tools now is we can go truly multi-channel and watch every channel to see what they did. So in here, I could look for a trigger in both channels and work out which way to go. So maybe it was a text message, they clicked on a link in. Maybe it was a newsletter where they read a particular article. By doing that, it means I can unify back to another channel again and just work out where I want to go. And again, all the way using this data set within that to make sure every email is pertinent to them and what they are doing. And to do that, that's where having all the data in one place is really kind of key. So I'm just going to go to an email template now. So we've talked about building up a segment, being very restrictive in terms of looking at the data. Then we talked about the journey to make sure it's targeted at them as well. But let's kind of go on to a donation. So I'm on a thank you letter here, just as an example. I didn't have one for volunteering when we set this up, but the interesting thing here is all the way through, as I'm building out these templates to do this level of thanking, what I've got here is just a PS bit at the very bottom of the template. Let me just change my zoom a bit. I'm quite small on this screen for some people to be able to see. But I've just added the bit in. It's a generic thank you at donation. But actually, I've just got I've got a section in here that's literally just having a look at something. So again, just to make it a bit more about them. So yes, they've given us some money, all very simple. I've said the amount, what the all this various stuff, what the donate, what they were giving towards. But at the bottom, I've put like, actually, let me just check when I'm sending this email, if they've logged a case recently. If they've logged a case recently, let's just be a bit more open about it. So in here, once data is all in one place, I'm looking at a trigger. I'm actually looking at this contact and saying, actually, they've just given me some money. That's great. But can I just quickly check they haven't logged a support issue or a case, or they've been asking us a question? And can I also check if it's open? So in this context, I'm just double checking. I'm just checking in on them, making sure that the wording in this email is about them as an individual. It's not just generic. It's a thank you letter, it's a transact, so I'm not marketing to them. I don't really have permission to market this if we're looking at consent world, but actually I probably could reach out and check they're okay, because I have that data available to me to actually just double check. It could have been they've signed up for an event and cancelled. It could be any other data point in a database, but being able to make this email more like it's coming from a person rather than a computer just doing generic means we could open up that conversation and kind of really kind of go into making sure it's really pertinent for what they need to be. And that could even be subject lines. It could be anything. But again, making sure that we're aware all the way through what we're doing with this to make sure it means something to them. Then on top of that, just as I get with this condition, other aspects as well is it's all nice being doing personalization, but we don't want to be stuck building hundreds and hundreds of email templates. And again, that's where other platforms have started doing elements like branding profiles. So what I mean by that is we could be building templates for the whole organization, but we work with a number of charities that are very hub and spoke orientated. They have a lot of regional offices, a lot of regional teams working out. So let's actually make this, everything we do come from that region, that hub. Even in terms of the Instagram links at the bottom, the Facebook links, it could be the region's Facebook page or their Instagram account, but one email template, but make it much more microized, much more local. It's coming from actually the person you've met, just again to help with those clicks, help with those on read rates. And that's where we're trying to get to. If we have this data available to us, we can add these conditions in, we can add this additional filtering in to make it far more pertinent for them as a person as we kind of go through. So I'm just checking through. I think that's basically what I wanted to cover today in terms of before we dripped into questions. Yeah, it was. So back over to you, Tory, if that's okay.
Yep, thank you. So I think I've seen some questions come in, but I'll hand control of those questions back to Lisa, then we can respond as and when.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, James and Tory, for these this presentation. It was quite insightful, and the example was also quite vivid. Can you just obviously we have a few questions already, but can you just tell us maybe the three main key things? So for a charity that might not be using Dynamics, what from the the sort of example you showed, what key things can they reuse if they're, for instance, using HubSpot or another piece of software?
I think the key thing is whatever platform you're using today, it can't be a them and us approach to the world. We can't be in the world of, I'm a marketeer, let me generate a CSV file once a week and of just name, address, postcode. It can't. We've gone past that. That was very much mid 90s, early 2000s. Yes, but
25 years ago.
Yeah, but we probably still come across 25% of people we talk to who are still in that mold of just, here's my weekly CSV file of who I'm going to email to. We need to get to a point where if we're selecting products, whether it's HubSpot or Salesforce or all those ones, that they can access the data and they can bi-directionally work out who this person really is. We've gone past I've got an email list, isn't it great? There's 10,000 people in it and I know their first name. We can't kind of do that as an approach to marketing. So we need to have that integration. And we can start simple. We can start simply adding what events they attended, when the last time they donated, but we need to work towards more than that. Yeah. Just to make sure we can truly do it. So whatever the platform, we need to get them glued together, and MailChimp's got lots of integrations. Lots of them have got integrations now that can pull that additional data set in.
Oh, absolutely. No, thank you. And yeah, we have a few questions already, and obviously the topic is really interesting. Also to me as a volunteer at a small food bank. So I also have a few questions, and hopefully that will encourage other people. But the first question we have, a question from Joseph, is asking, how has the new iOS update affected the ability to track the best time to send people emails?
Well, the iOS update around tracking was slightly different because the way emails are tracked is really low level and a bit appalling, really. It's looking for pixel clicks, it's looking for image loads. So iOS hasn't affected much around read times. What iOS updates has really hampered is segmentation on Instagram, Facebook, and Google Ads. So it's that side that it's really hurt the most. But what we're seeing is, especially on some of the stats we put on in terms of multi-channel, is the directly targeted stuff on Facebook and Instagram can still work. So we work with other digital marketing platforms that post email send can send that complete email list as a targeted segment to those channels. So rather than saying, give me everybody in their 40s living in Bradford who's interested in this, we're giving Instagram and Facebook, I've just sent an email to 5,000 people. Can you put ads on these 5,000 people's email addresses? So it's more of the generic open kind of give me everybody in this cohort that's really affected that in terms of iOS.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, James. The next question we have from Sabine. Does Microsoft Dynamics have AI capabilities built in? Or is it an add-on?
No, this is fully built in. So I don't think you can kind of compete in this space now without making AI part of the core product. So everybody's doing lightweight, the simple AI is the best way to describe it. It's the helper AI. Advanced net-spec actions and that is still prosumer, pay for, but actually just working out when to send something, who the person is, that is kind of becoming free in most platforms now, purely because as a need. And the nice thing is, as more platforms are providing that for free, everybody else has to jump on the bandwagon. So we should all benefit in the end.
From there, absolutely. No, thank you. Another question we've got that's more into the email marketing side of things. So how can charities expand from just a monthly newsletter? Don't know whether Tory or James, you want to jump on that one?
Tory, do you want to jump on that one, or do you want me to?
I was just reading one of the other questions. Sorry, Lisa. Can you say the question again?
No worries. So how can charities expand from just a monthly newsletter into a bit more engagement?
Well, I think, my view is that newsletters always contain. You wouldn't send a newsletter as an attachment. You can't do that. You'd send a newsletter as a link to a site to open that that information. And I always think that, you know, people always start off with newsletters, but you'll have embedded links within those digital newsletters, training, events, volunteering. And then through the email marketing tools, you can actually see, for example, sometimes, yes, they've opened it. What links did they click on? How long did they spend on each pages? So if somebody went in and was interested in volunteering, you could then put them in a journey within your CRM, which is, you know, potential volunteer, or something like that. So I think, you know, newsletters are a great way in terms of seeing that. We send newsletters out to customers, and within our newsletters we have, you know, next version or training or opportunity, whatever it may be. And that's something that, you know, it gives, you know, the account managers, it gives marketing a way to actually know what's of interest to that individual.
Yeah, and by starting with a newsletter with lots of links in over a 3 to 4 month period, you can get the data to work out what people are actually interested in. So you almost need it as a starter. If you don't know what your user base really wants to know, doing the newsletter, but making sure every month on the month you've got 6 topic areas, 6 links, because then after a couple of months you're going to get that telemetry of actually the cohort of my user base is really interested in topic A or topic B. And then we can do more focused content. But it's hard to go straight to focused until we've done that market research. So almost use and abuse the genericness for a couple of months, but make sure there's enough links in there that we can actively profile them a bit more to understand who they really are.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you also say that best way is also to ask them, maybe do a little survey?
Surveys are great. And you can get some really great, whether it's SurveyMonkey or whatever, so you get some really good, you know, you can take the data from your CRM, so it's relevant data in the survey to them. They can then click score, star, whatever the survey may be, and then that's fed back against that contact. So that could be as simple as, you've attended our event, how did you find our facilities, refreshments, organization, you know, and start like that all the way to what's your interest or whatever. So I think that surveys is always it's got to be easy to do. There's no point sending a survey with 30 questions. People just can it. But if you can start, you know, even with 5, you know, what is your interest in our charity? Is it fundraising, events, legacy, whatever? And again, that will start that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you both. We have another question, and I think it was from Lucy. So obviously, as we were saying, using Microsoft Dynamics is a great idea and can work for some charities, but many others already have other CRMs that work well for the audience, or maybe lack the money to invest in this software. Are there any insights that you can offer to charities in this particular position?
Yeah, I mean, there are loads of systems out there, and, you know, I'll just say one thing is that, you know, Dynamics isn't just for big charities. Okay, so we do implement Dynamics so people can get on a platform at the lower level, as to Salesforce as well. So don't think that a platform such as Salesforce Dynamics, you've got to have hundreds of days and hundreds of thousands of pounds to put it in. But I think, you know, if we're talking about marketing and engagement, it's very much, you can't personalize your marketing if you don't know your supporters and what they're interested in and what motivates them. So, you know, we've talked about when people are likely to open an email and things like that. But, you know, as a basic, having that data in one place is really key. Getting people information off spreadsheets, making sure it's up-to-date data and things like that. So data is key. I think you'd struggle really with any sophisticated marketing if your data's wrong. Whatever tool you use, it won't, you know. So yeah, we always talk data.
Data is the key word.
It is really. So whatever system is, understanding your data.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Tory. Moving on, we have more questions coming in, and that's great because we still have plenty of time to answer them. So please do drop them in the chat. Question from Hannah. Do you have any recommendations for CRMs that would work better for a charity that gives out grants rather than does fundraising or sells anything?
Yeah, so there's a number of charities there's a number of software vendors that have non-profit common data models that do both the grant giving and the inbound side. So Salesforce have the non-profit success path, Dynamics 365 have fundraising engagement and MC4N. So both the platforms naturally do it well. There are a couple of, but once you get to products, they are more pure grants, pure fundraising. So that's kind of one of the scenarios that we've come across a lot, where you have, when you want to do the whole bit, money in, money out, and matching grants in to grants out, it kind of leads itself a bit more to platform-ish, because there's some beautiful grant giving products we've worked with in the past, but you end up with two silos of data. So again, we're the whole concept of, I want to give some money out, therefore I need to create a concept note to get a donor to give me the money to give the money out, means that sometimes going for a bit more joined up approach works in that. And I think that's what we've noticed a lot, because 5 years ago, we didn't hardly do any outbound grants. We did lots of inbound grant projects, but now everyone's suddenly realizing that there's a big reporting mush in the middle that just wastes time and wastes effort. You've got one team getting money in who then have to keep asking where it's being spent and what the impact was. Where if they could see all that data all the way through, they could report back to their donors to get more funding in the future. So, and especially some of the government funding now, everything is around impact reporting, isn't it? So it's making sure it's, whatever you do is reportable, because I spend more time writing reports for government departments for small charities than anything else, because literally every charity, they're doing all these good causes and they end up employing staff just to create spreadsheets to keep government happy, because that's where the money came from. So it's looking and making sure there's a model that can do the reporting side. So make sure that's a key element of a decision process, because sooner or later someone's going to want to know how it's been spent, and if you actually had, and if what the impact was.
No, absolutely. I agree. And this is also what many of our, some of our members of our audience also ask regularly, how can they get better at impact reporting, and how can they use the tech, because it is extremely time consuming, and it can, divert you from spending time on your mission. So how can you use and leverage technology that to work for you? I think it's quite important. And actually something quite similar, another question from Joseph, if you can recommend any links to things to look out for when switching to a new CRM, and what should it be able to track, and that sort of elements, if you have any.
Be able to track.
In terms of switching to a new CRM, the very first thing to take on board is, don't try and build utopia on day one. What you need to build on day one is a slight improvement on what you have. Otherwise, but you need the flexibility that you can do massive improvement in the future. What you'll often come across is somebody's working perfectly fine on a spreadsheet or a really small CRM system, and then everybody will get together in a room and just create the world's largest wish list of everything it could ever do. Yeah. Where actually what you need to do is do incremental change. Yes, you need to improve. Yes, you need to move forward. But sometimes I've seen charities get hung up on trying to build utopia and spend 3 years trying to build it, when actually what they wanted is incremental improvements, and otherwise you stagnate for 3 years trying to work out how to move. And we're in a technological world now where technology is moving at a pace. So let's get MVP plus some nice toys, and then whatever you invest into, make sure you can keep adding toys, keep adding functionality. And that's the thing. Don't get yourself stuck in a box. So if you're selecting a CRM system, let's just make sure it's fit for purpose, but it can grow with you. Don't go for fancy on day one, because you might not get there.
No, it's very important. And also something I could add is also ensure that the key members of your team also are bought in, buying into the process, that they fully understand what it can do for them, how it can help them, so that there's also better adoption within the organization.
Right.
And having, again, building, in stage incrementally a tool that works for everyone is also is very important.
Right.
So it's important to take time to speak to everyone. But thank you very much for that, James. Another question from William. So the main feature of the charity is to offer free access to records online, which is really good. What is your opinion on using CTA pop-ups to engage with people who use the websites? William said they've been trialing this for donation drives. And so having CTA pop-ups, is that a good idea? Have you seen that happening with some of your clients? Or
so we've seen it more in the commercial space, so the kind of call to action stuff and stuff like that, but we haven't seen the good stuff come down to a price point that's been really good for charity yet, if I'm honest. So in the commercial space, Tory may have looked at elements like Thunderhead and some of those that are really kind of really know who you are, and those call to actions are very targeted. But what we've been waiting for is that kind of a really fun technology to come down to a price point where charities can use it, because at the moment some of it is just generic pop-ups, where the really nice call to action stuff it's working out wealth scoring you just by looking at you, working out vaguely where your IP address is. It's doing all sorts of magical stuff, and that is improving. I've worked with a US donation platform that's doing exactly that. So the donation ask value is instantaneously real time, looking at your IP address, therefore your postcode, therefore the cost of the computer you're currently connecting on, all that sort of stuff. So it's like, oh, this person's definitely rich, kind of that sort of approach. So
it's very advanced.
So it is improving, but we're just waiting for that technology thing to come down to a price point. So yes, if you want to go there, I definitely would, but we're just waiting for that price point to kind of break and people to enter that space. But a lot of the donation platforms are starting to put that into their products now, so we're just starting to see it.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, James. A question more on the sort of email and marketing journey. Should you resend emails to people who didn't open the first one, and how soon after the first email should you do this? And that's a question for Tory, I guess.
I suppose that varies. I mean, people aren't really buying lists anymore. I don't think you can just sort of, in the old days, we'd buy a list and email. But actually, so there must be for you to have that contact, you'd like to think that there is a reason why you have it. So whether they donated a year ago or whatever, it's, I suppose, it's being able to get a hook on how they first engaged with you as a charity and hopefully lean on that. I think, some people say 3 times and then that's it. Different charities that we've worked with have different, I suppose, rules on that. Sometimes people say, well, I'll try an email, and if the email doesn't work, then I'll send a text, or whatever. So you can try different methods, but ultimately, you want good, clean data. When GDPR came out, everyone sort of panicked, thinking, my gosh, the number of my supporters in the database is going to halve. But actually, with our clients, yes, the number of contacts, if you like, has reduced. But actually, they've been able to increase their income because of more personalised engagement, because they've got, I suppose, the tools. But ultimately, just bombarding people just probably annoys people, if nothing else. How many times do you go for it? But personally, a lot of the clients that we have, yes, they will have a sort of a 3-stroke rule, and that's it, really.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Tory. Moving on, and another question from Vicky. They're currently building a bespoke CRM, and they're wondering what would you recommend they include, as functionalities and features?
Gosh.
I'm presuming bespoke as in a platform where they're building on top of it. So I think so. Yeah. So I'd have to answer in that context. Otherwise, because it's all about supportability and maintainability and making sure it grows with you. So that's the key thing. So if it's bespoke, it needs to be something that's going to evolve over time. And you've got to look at total cost of ownership. So we'd always recommend platform. So charities, people move around, isn't it? Everybody likes moving around between charities. You don't want to build something that's in so bespoke, only the people who ex staff remember it. So
exactly.
my view, especially on this, is keep it simple. We've done so many where they want the world's most complicated journeys of how to nurture somebody, but if that's one person's utopia and they move on, the next person needs to understand it.
I think it's also the fact that, you know, when we approach projects, we don't go in blinkered on what the requirements are for the next 6 months, 12 months. You know, we're very much trying to build and configure the systems in line with the charity strategy over the next 5 years. Or if something does happen within the sector or technology, that we're not having to rework and repick anything that we've done. So it's the flexibility to adapt as the needs, the technologies, the changes that take place. So for example, we worked with a charity. They were very regionally based. So we set up the solution with different business units and security and everything like that. And then within a matter of weeks, they decided that actually, no, they're going to move away from being regionally based. But we'd built in the flexibility to be able to make quick changements to that, rather than it be, if it was rigid and bespoke that way, it would have been a lot of unpicking. So I think, just flexibility really, rather than building what you need now and not considering what you want in the future.
I agree. Thank you very much for your answers. We also have, as Charity Digital, we also have quite a lot of articles and also I think webinars, a couple of years old webinars about what to look for in a CRM and what a CRM can do for you. So we'll certainly put out a few links into our resources tab on that to help the members of our audience who are navigating that stage of exploring different CRM. Great. And Vicky saying thanks for the tips. So that's also perfect. We've also got time for more questions. So if some people are raring to ask their questions, they can feel free to. I had one more on the supporter journey. So obviously now the majority of charities are also quite present on social media, whether that's Facebook, Instagram. What would you advise on linking all the comms that charities receive on these social media, some direct messages, some comments under that post? How can they easily integrate that as part of a marketing journey and keep the contact with these?
So it's a bit of a grey area and needs to be handled carefully. So we've worked with a number of social acquisition products over the years. So direct messages, perfectly fine. You consented by being direct. The grey area is comments, likes, because effectively they're answering on another platform. So it's whether you're becoming a data processor without consent under the eyes of GDPR at that point, because you can't say they've talked to me on Instagram, therefore I'm going to send them an email, because there's been no consent process there under GDPR. So I love the acquisition stuff, and it's great to work out who is the influencers, who are the detractors. So you could use it to imply journeys and reach out to people, but we just need to be careful. So if people is talking to you on Instagram, Facebook, the acquisition products we now deal with almost do a scripted bit at the end to check you've got a level of consent before that data moves from platform A to platform B. So I might sound like I'm being a bit pedantic, but it's just, if you look at GDPR, it's an area where everyone's going to start to be careful. So even Microsoft and some big players went straight into this space a couple of years ago and reversed themselves out at speed when they realized where the compliance bit sits. So there's some really nice products out there doing some really good business, but they've all been rewritten so every bit of interaction stays directly on that platform. You're just visualizing it. As soon as you try and take it and move it into a CRM system, you need to make sure you've got that consent model in place. Talking to them on the platform is perfectly fine. Working out who your influencer is perfectly fine, but let's not pull in their Facebook comments onto their contact record, because you're in a bit of a grey area there. So you just need to be aware and just go through those legalities with yourself and your own GDPR policies.
Super.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Yeah, Tory, you wanted to add anything or?
No, I was just giving an example. Microsoft acquired LinkedIn, and people always say, "Oh, integration with LinkedIn." But actually, when you go into something like Dynamics, and I bring up a name, it's just surfacing that data from LinkedIn into Dynamics. It's not importing that person's data. So it's about being able to give people the access to the data. But as James said, making sure you're compliant as well. And to be honest, you wouldn't want any CRM system containing every single chat and tweet that ever went on. So we are we're very pragmatic, and I think most partners are, which is being best of breed systems, that the right tool of choice for, right tool to do the job, really. So yeah, getting everything into one database will never happen. Let's be honest. So, and for good reasons. So yeah.
Make the best out of all
That's
of them.
Right.
Another question from team. Do you find that many charities have the capacity and expertise to implement segmentations and journeys as you described, or are most charities a long way off this in terms of how they use tech and the staff capacity?
It varies. It completely varies. We were on a call yesterday, and they're really pushing the boundaries of what they want to do. And you're talking about data warehouses and data mart, and and everything like that. We've got other charities that would use fast stats for a lot of their segmentation, which is a brilliant tool, and we integrate with fast stats. And then they're right. The other side of things, where the charities are we just want to get our data into a sensible format so we can do basic segmentation. So I think it does vary. I think any CRM project is resource intensive. It's not a plug and play. Decisions need to be made. Data needs to be cleansed. People need to be trained. So they are big projects. They are, they're projects that take a lot of hard work, and they are resource intensive to get it right. But the results are, speak for themselves with people who have gone through the pain, should I say, and out the other side. So it does vary. But segmentation, data is all projects now aren't really about what they used to be like. It is all about data and segmentation. Yeah.
What you do with them.
Yeah.
No, but great. Thanks very much, Tory, James. That's we've actually run out of time for any more questions, but thank you very much, and thank you very much, everyone, for all of your fantastic questions. It's been really interesting to get everybody's opinion. Obviously, we will do our very best to put as much resources as we can into our resource tab, so that you have loads of information to go after. The webinars recording and the slides, everything will be sent to you over the next coming days, so you can also share with your colleagues and other team members. Big thank you again to all of you that joined us. Obviously, it is a different time comparing with our 1 to 2 slots, so thank you very much for making the time to join us. As a matter of fact, our upcoming session from Charity Digital is a Q&A session around email marketing. So for many of you who ask questions around email journeys and email marketing, there's definitely a session for you there to check out, so you can have a look at our webinar section on charitydigital.org.uk to access all the information and to sign up and register. Hopefully, we hope that presentation has been very insightful for all of you, and we hope to see you again very soon attending one of our webinars. Thank you very much, Tory and James, for your time.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your
See you,
afternoon.
bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.